Hello everyone, and welcome to the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum of Art. My name is Michelle and I'm an educator here at NEHMA. Today we're going to go behind the scenes and learn about the museum vault. A vault is where we store things that are very important to us and that we want to keep safe. Oftentimes we think of vaults as being something that we see at banks, but museums also have vaults. Here at NEHMA, the vault is where we keep our collection of art objects, which are the most important thing we have here in the museum, and it's very important that we take very good care of them. We have some special museum tricks that we use to make sure the collection is always safe and protected. So let's go take a peek inside the vault and learn some of these tricks as we see how we keep our collection safe here at NEHMA.
All right, welcome to the vault. At first glance, this may just look like a big storage room, but let's take a closer look at how this storage room is so important to the museum for taking care of the collections. Now, the first rule for being in the vault and for taking care of collections is to make sure that we don't harm the art objects in any way, even accidentally. So in order to be in the vault, I need to make a couple of changes about my person right here. First off, I'm gonna take off my watch and a ring and any other jewelry that might accidentally bump or scratch anything that I interact with. The next thing is, even though my hands are clean, I'm gonna put on gloves, okay? Because even if your hands are super clean, you just washed them, your skin always has oils that can damage art objects. So I'm gonna put my special art handling gloves on. Okay, there we go. Now I'm ready to interact with objects from the collection. So when we're storing the collection, we wanna make sure the objects are safe. They're not gonna get broken or damaged. For some pieces, like sculptures that are odd shapes and sizes, this could mean finding them a place on a shelf or maybe even on the floor where there's a lot of space around it, so nothing is going to touch it or bump it. For other things, we're going to wrap them up very carefully, and we're going to make sure that they are always padded. If you'll notice, my table here has foam on it, okay? And the shelves behind me, you can see those, they have foam on them. They have boards across that are covered in foam. That's where we store our ceramics. Okay, we have a large collection of ceramics, things made out of clay, like our cute little cup here. Okay, and they're very breakable. So when we store them, we want to wrap them up like this piece here. It's wrapped in bubble wrap and foam, wrapped all the way up so we can store them on a shelf or in a box and make sure they're not going to get broken. Now, even if I were to store this little pitcher and this cup next to each other on a shelf, I would wrap them so that even when they're next to each other, they're not going to bump each other and they're not going to break. Do you see that? Okay, so we have to be very careful with our collections when we're storing them. Another way we store things is right here. These big black shelves, you can see they have handles on the ends. This is called rolling storage. For large art objects, especially the ones that have really delicate surfaces, like paintings, we don't want them to touch other things. So we hang them on these racks. We can hang on both sides of the racks. The racks are far enough apart, they're not going to bump each other. And because the racks are on wheels, we can pull them out, lift the art off, and push it back in. We can store a lot of objects in a much smaller space, so it's a really good way to store our art. A lot of our collection are photographs and works on paper, and these are very delicate. So I have a couple here. So with works on paper, we lay them flat, okay? We're not going to hang it up. It's not in a frame, so it's very delicate. We don't want it to get bent. So we're going to store it flat with these special pieces of tissue paper in between. That way they can't rub against each other. Again, they can't scratch. They're not going to get faded. And after we stack them with their tissue paper, we store works on paper in big boxes or on shelves, and we usually store them in the dark because light can do a lot of damage to art. The last thing I want to talk about in the vault is one of the most important parts of the vault is something you can't actually see. It's called climate control. And that means that we make sure it's never too hot, never too cold, too damp, or too dry here inside the vault. We want to protect the collection to make sure nothing damages it. And heat, cold, and moisture in the air can be damaging to certain art objects. So it's very important that we climate control the vault. So I have one quick question for you before we leave the vault. How do you think we know where all these different objects that we have are stored? How do we make sure we don't lose any of them? Do you have any ideas? Well, one answer is that we write everything down. We keep lots of records about the collection, about individual objects, and about the vault itself. Each object in the collection has a special number that we have given it, and there's all this paperwork we fill out talking about who made it, where did it come from, does it have a title. We measure how big it is, how tall is it, what's the circumference, what color is it, what descriptive words can we use to describe the art. We write down all this information and we log it with that number, and we put that number on the art, and we also write down where we store it. I don't know if you can see, but there's some numbers on our racks. There's numbers on the shelves, and so that we can write down where each piece is kept so that we don't accidentally misplace it. So, thank you for coming with me into NEHMA's vault, getting this little behind the scenes peek into where we store our collections and how we take care of them. The next time I see you, we'll be up in the galleries to talk a little bit more about collections.
Welcome back, everyone. Now that we are out of the vault and back in the galleries, let's talk about what kinds of collections you might have at home. Many people collect things that are important to them, that have meaning to them, or even just things that they like. Now that you've learned a little bit more about museum collections and how we organize and store collections in the museum, we want to challenge you to spend some time thinking about your collections at home. So first of all, what is it that you're collecting? I brought a few examples from my home so you can see that some things that you may not even think of as collections in fact are. So let's look at a couple of things here. First, we have our little tiny animals. Okay, these little tiny animals, there are lots of them at my house, and they have been given to us over the years for different birthdays and holidays from family members. So they're very important to us because they remind us of happy times. This collection of Matchbox cars, how many of you have Matchbox cars at home? This collection was started by my dad when he was a kid, and then continued with my brother and myself and my other siblings. This collection here is all of seashells. Now, a lot of people, when they travel, like to collect things from their travels. We like to collect seashells from the beaches, either seashells that we find or maybe that we buy. Other people may collect magnets or bumper stickers or keychains or different things like that that remind you of trips. Now, this right here is kind of fun. We collect buttons. Okay, and we separate our buttons by color and store them in fun things. These bottles here were old spice containers, but we like that they're glass so we can see the buttons inside so we know where they are. These containers are a little bit different. They're also see-through on the bottom. These are old makeup containers. So you can store your collections any way you want. You can store them so that you can see them. We keep our Matchbox cars in a bag that's soft so it doesn't scratch them. The seashells are stored in a basket on a shelf so that we can see them whenever we want. And our little animals just go in a box in a cupboard. So it doesn't matter what you're collecting or how you're going to store it, but go ahead and look through your home and see what kinds of collections your family already has. So thanks for joining me to talk about collections. If you want to learn more about NEHMA's collection of art objects or explore our galleries, you can come visit us at the museum, or you can go online to artmuseum.usu.edu. and you can take a digital tour of our galleries and you can see our collections. Thanks for joining us. Hello everyone, welcome back to NEHMA to talk about exhibitions. My name is Michelle and I'm an educator here at NEHMA. Today we're going to talk about how museums create exhibitions and how you can create exhibitions at home using your collections. So let's take a little peek at some of the collections that I showed you before from my home and different ways that we can exhibit them. So do you remember my collection of buttons? One way that we exhibit our buttons is we have them just pinned to this piece of cardboard. And this we can hang on the wall. We could also glue them down and put them in a frame on the wall. Or we like to just keep them in the glass bottles so that we can pull them out and play with them to arrange them in different shapes and patterns and sort of create art using our collection in lots of different ways. Another thing that you can do is build one of these. Okay, there's instructions later in this PowerPoint to build your very own display box. This is made out of a cereal box and it's super easy. And this is a way that you can take one of your objects. Here I have my lovely cement truck. And you can put your object in the box and you can display it in there. It looks nice in there, right? But what's really going to make this into an exhibition is light. I have the flashlight on my cell phone. And if I line the flashlight up with that hole, it lights the object. Can you see that? And that way it makes the object really stand out and pop like a museum exhibition. If you notice behind me in this exhibition, there are lights from the ceiling that light each object, each photograph individually. So in order to create an exhibition, the first thing you need to decide is where the exhibition will be and what objects you're going to use. Here in the museum, we think a lot about space. Which gallery are we going to use? Are we going to use the whole gallery? Are we going to build some false walls and only use part of it to make a smaller space? So we have to think about those kinds of things. Once we've decided how big the space is going to be, we know how many objects will fit into that space. So think about at home, are you going to do display boxes? Are you going to put it on a shelf that's only this big, so you only have this much space? Are you going to put it in a frame? How much space do you have to exhibit your collection? And then decide how many pieces you can create an exhibition with. So depending on how much space you use, depends on how many different pieces you can put in your collection. And sometimes you can use more than one collection in the same exhibition space. For example, here in this gallery, we have an exhibition of landscape photographs. They are all photographs, that's what they have in common, but they were created by different artists in different places, in different times, but they all go together in this exhibition because they have something in common. They're hung in the gallery in different configurations. They're not all in squares. Sometimes they're a little bit off-centered. They have spaces in between them. So when you're creating your exhibition, think about if you could combine more than one collection, okay? Could you find all of the yellow things from your different collections and put them together into one exhibition? Could you gather different kinds of cups from around your house and make an exhibition of cups? Maybe line them up by size, line them up by color, line them up by how old they are, okay? There's all different ways you can combine different collections to create a really fun exhibition. So now that we've given you some ideas, you get to go home and be creative with your exhibitions in your home. And the fun thing about exhibitions is you can change them as often as you want. They're not static. So go ahead and have fun with your exhibitions and come down to the museum when you get a chance and check out the exhibitions we have here. Thanks for joining us.